Hi, Deb. Good to see you.
Good seeing you. How are you?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Oh, pretty good, Pete. Thank you.
Good. Good. Well, let's jump into it. So we've got some good questions, and thank you for those in advance who did provide questions. That's great. If there's any other one has questions that we may not have or just coming on during the course of the meeting, please let me know. I will just let you know that I do have a conflict at 8, but I'll leave everything up, and Mr. Neville will facilitate any of the additional discussions for the balance of the meeting. But so Dave Berube, I saw you're on. So Dave's got a couple questions. Dave's got a BJ8, and he's looking at recommendations for front brake pads. Are ceramic ones the way to go or not? Or are there other suggestions for front brake pads for a BJ8? And then his second question is as it relates to, he's looking to replace his ignition wires, and he wants ones that look as original as possible. So any thoughts and recommendations for Dave on that? So anyone use ceramic brake pads on their BJ8s or their Healeys with disc brakes? Nick, were you saying I saw your phone come on? Okay, I guess not. So anyone have any thoughts regarding brake pads for BJ8s, the recommendation to go with that?
I've got ceramics on my Nasty Boy. They're on a Toyota pickup truck, calipers with four pots, but they work fine. I mean, I don't have any problem with it. I'm trying to remember somebody else. I thought there was someone else in the club that was using ceramics on the front of their BJ8, but I can't remember who.
That's what happens when we get old, Rick, right?
I can't remember who I am at this point.
Bob Abbott, any recommendations regarding ceramic brake pads in your business?
No, I've never installed anybody's car with ceramic brake pads.
Okay.
I would probably dissuade them because of the problem we have with the squeaky brakes and just composite brake pads. So I don't know, but I would think ceramics might lend themselves more to being noisy.
I haven't found that with mine. They're not noisy at all. Of course, maybe the engine noise.
Mike Salter, do you have any experiences with ceramic brake pads?
No, I really don't. I've always used the standard type. Concerns me is that they might hack up the discs, but I have no experience.
Okay. So Dave, have you been running ceramics and you're looking to replace your existing ones, or Dave, you're on mute, by the way.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. No, it's my first set of brake pads actually, with the 45,000 miles that I've put on the car since I've owned it. So I need to replace them. I just thought I'd ask the question, see, but I'm gathering from the discussion that's already been had here that, ceramics isn't like, oh, I'm using them. Not everybody's using them. So yeah, I'm fine with your standard pad.
Okay.
Sounds like a good Google question.
Please.
Since we're talking about the brakes, the front brakes, so my project has been sitting for 20 years and the discs in front, they look new, but they're pretty, they're obviously it's sort of superficial rust. What do you recommend? I mean, I'm probably going to disassemble the front, but should I turn them? Should I just sand them down with the Scotch-Brite, or what do you guys recommend?
So these were new brake pads from 20 years ago that just got surface rust on them, Tom?
It looks like the discs themselves, I mean, I don't think they've ever been touched, but they certainly have a nice sheen of rust on them. There's no pitting or anything, but and since I'm kind of detailing it as I'm going through it, in the past, obviously with like the Camaro thing, other cars that I've used, I've turned down the discs, but what do you do with the Healey? Is there Any
Isn't that an
recommendation?
oxymoron? Sheen of rust?
Yeah, yeah.
Rich Duckett, are you trying to say something? You're on mute if you were saying something. Okay. Anyone have thoughts for Tom in terms of, does he need new discs, or can he just clean up what he has?
Well, Tom, I did the same thing. I had discs that were rusty in the front, but they looked like they were in pretty good shape otherwise. And I had Napa. I don't know if you're familiar with Napa Auto Parts.
Yeah.
Yep.
They in my town, he had a machine and he just skim coat them. Like
Right, okay, I could do
in
that.
an old time record. He just goes across the whole thing and just skims off the rust.
Yeah, that's what I think I'll do. I did that for the drums in the back. So I'll get them to do the fronts too, sure. That's good.
Okay. Great.
Back a few years ago, I ordered a set of discs from Moss Motors, and I had to return them because they had machined them and it looked like they were off center. I didn't like them at all.
Wow.
When they machined them, the casting was thicker on one side than the other. And I returned them and tried to explain to them what was wrong with them. And they said they'd look into it, but I've never heard anything about it after that. So if
You
you
have to-
set of discs, I would definitely clean them.
Yeah, you have to match the hardness of your pads to the hardness of your rotors. If you go too hard on the pads, you will cut grooves in your rotors because the hardness of the steel. Usually go with what the company is selling.
So, good question. So are ceramic pads hard?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, fair enough.
But Rick, you hadn't experienced any of that with yours. I realize it's a different setup with the Toyota setup, but
No, I have the whatever Moss sells for the drilled and slotted rotors, and I haven't had a problem at all with it.
okay.
Not that I use my brakes hard or anything.
Right.
But you don't want, you shouldn't have much mileage on that, right? How much mileage is on that car?
Not that much. I mean, there's probably 3,000, 2,000 or 3,000 since the pads have been on there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm
Elvin,
sorry,
you got a
got it.
question?
Yes, I got in a bit late. I'm sorry. What was the comment on ceramic pads?
Well, yeah, so Dave Berube was asking about replacing his brake pads on his BJ8, and he was inquiring regarding ceramic. And I think the conclusion of the group was it'd be better just stay with standard pads than putting ceramic pads on.
Okay, yeah.
And then Dave's other question was as it relates to any recommendations on a new set of wires. He doesn't want anything fancy. He wants black to look original. But anyone have good experience with wires for your 6-cylinder big Heelys?
One thing I can tell you about ignition wires is that, in the old days, we used to use copper wires. They had copper with insulators. These days, it's definitely not recommended. If you're trying to use a cell phone or even a GPS, the copper cord wires will interfere with the signal. You need to go to carbon wires. So that's one thing. If you want the carbon wires to look original, many of them you can actually wipe off all the lettering on black carbon wires just with lacquer thinners.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Does
If you
Moss produce a relatively good looking set of replacement wires? Do they, something that looks somewhat original or no?
Not that I'm aware of. They sell the Bumblebee ones, but they were an aftermarket. They weren't original.
Bob Abbott, do you get your wires from Enon at Healy Surgeons?
I do. And I get them specifically because they are copper core wires, which I prefer over carbon wires, just because I find it very difficult to get the carbon core wires to to be attached to the distributor cap and then, and the spark plug ends, depending on what kind of spark plug ends you're using. But they're just plain black wires with a copper center. The only thing that won't be original to them is they also have a rubber spark plug boot rather than the Bakelite or plastic spark plug boot that I believe came as original.
Okay,
Hey, Pete, can we go back to the ceramic pad thing? I just wanted to say that the only reason I have them in my car is the calipers came loaded with them. And I heard people say they're happy with them, so that's why I used them. It wasn't through any great choice and I wouldn't say they're so spectacular I go my way to use them. They're fine, but no big deal. You know, I've used EBC pads, which come in different hard and softness, green pads and red pads, I think. Those tend to be pretty popular with people too, EBC.
did you hear that, Dave Berube? Dave, you're on mute.
Yes, I did, Pete. I got it.
Okay.
Yep.
So other questions that you have regarding either pads or wires that hopefully we can get some recommendations on?
No, you know, I was just kind of throwing it out and just to see what the opinions were, but yeah, I don't know about that copper wire thing with the interference with cell phones, I think the gentleman said.
Yeah, that's Mike Salter.
Mike Salter, yeah. So
Yeah, so that would be any interference with possibly your GPS or your
Yeah,
cell phone?
my experience has been that if you've got a relatively weak signal on your cell phone, even if you're using it for navigation, it just seems to crash with solid core wires.
Mike, doesn't solid core wire mess up if you have a Protronics in there?
Don't
So
know.
no?
So I just put an electronic ignition in the Sprite, and they said don't use solid core wires. They sold me the whole kit, and I don't know if the wires are the carbon kind, but they're not solid. They said because it messes up the electronic ignition.
Is that Protronics, Alan?
I don't know if it's Protronics or not. I mean, it may be some sort of knockoff. I just found it on eBay.
Okay.
And the guy, I called him because I had some questions about it because I'm trying to set the timing.
Yeah.
And I will talk to anybody about timing. Bob Abbott knows this for a fact because I called him. But it works great. It's just that in the instructions it says you can't use solid core wires.
Okay.
When you're using carbon core wires, back in the old days, they used to come with the sets with a little washer and then like a nail, and they used to push the nail up inside the carbon, push it into the carbon, and with the washer trapped under the head of the nail.
Yeah.
And that was to avoid, because they do had problems with them arcing at that contact point, but that did seem to resolve the issue.
Yeah, I've seen those, Mike. Yep. Okay.
And I think solid core wires, I remember with the Camaros that I had, forget about listening to the radio. The whine that you got from the ignition system was just incredible. I can only imagine that there would be some issues with the newfangled cell phones.
You want to try it with a wireless intercom? It's absolutely hopeless.
Oh, if you're doing like a rally or something?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Please go ahead, Rich.
My BJ8, the steering shaft that comes up to the steering wheel, you know, the little coil spring that's there for the adjustable steering? You can pull it in or pull it out.
Yeah. The collar?
What's that?
You mean the collar around the? Yep.
I don't have a collar. That one that tightens it, I don't have that. There's no place to put it, but I have the spring there. And I think somebody changed it because the steering wheel's changed. So something else so what I did from Austin-Healey spares, I ordered the hub with the collar, the tightening collar from Austin-Healey spares. It hasn't come yet.
Okay,
So I think somebody just had, when you're driving, all of a sudden you have to keep pushing on the steering wheel to keep it down.
it's not
when you
locked
get-
in.
Or when you get out of the car, it slides up on you, push you back. And it's kind of weird. It's driving me crazy. But when I get this hub, am I gonna have to pull all the wires all the way up through that tube to change that hub? Or are there connectors in the signal switch? Are there disconnectors inside the signal switch?
No,
So you
they-
get the stator tube that goes
the
all the
stator
way down from the trafficator down to the box. There
No,
is
have
no
to-
connection at the top other than,
There's no
There
disc.
are connections at the top inside the trafficator, but you don't want to be taking that apart.
Right.
Pull the trafficator out, pull all the wires, disconnect the wires down at the radiator and pull everything out. And then do the opposite. Reassembly is the opposite of the assemblage.
Yes. Okay. And it should fit on the same shaft.
Yes.
The same shaft is standard for either one, whether the stationary or the adjustable.
no, that's not correct.
That would not be
No, the
correct.
fix-
no.
The fixed column is a taper. The sliding column is a parallel spline. The fixed columns are a tapered spline.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I ordered an adjustable collar that will tighten, but
Just a minute. Have you got a fixed steering or adjustable steering?
adjustable,
Adjustable. So your car
right?
will have about a
Because Rich, you said
4-inch.
it slides right now, Rich.
it slides back in and out right now.
So you
but
have
there's
about
no- There's no tightener and there's no place to tighten on that mounting,
Spline.
the steering wheel mount. I don't see any
Okay, so
threads.
you're just to clarify, your
Yeah.
car has about a 4-inch long parallel spline that the steering wheel's mounted on.
Okay,
Is that what it has?
How far does it pull out, Rich?
oh, I haven't pulled it all the way out. I'm afraid to.
Well, you don't want to, no, but I mean, does it go 4 inches or more or less?
Yeah, I can pull it out 3 or 4 inches.
Yeah, so you have an adjustable column type steering column. So the steering wheel that you get has to be for that type of column. And then, as you said, there's a nut on the bottom of the wheel which actually clamps the steering wheel to the adjustable spline. Right?
Yeah.
Got that much? Then
Yeah.
between the nut, hang on, let me think here. Yeah, between the nut. No, hang on. I think I really where I am here. I think between the nut and the top of the column is that spring that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that spring has a cup on the bottom end that the spring slots into a sort of a cup, which is like a washer with turned up edges. And
Yes,
it
but I don't
has-
think I have that.
No, it's
I
all
know
probably
you're
all
talking about-
missing. Yeah,
but I'm
people used to
missing-
throw those away.
I may have to order that piece.
Well, you may have trouble finding it. Actually, they're not that easy to find.
May
What
have
kind of
to-
steering wheel do you have?
It's a monolita, an old monolita.
Mm.
So that might not be compatible with the adjustment, correct?
I don't know if the steering wheel hub is a monolita.
Well,
I
the bottom of the steering wheel on an adjustable steering column is tightened by that lock, if I'm not mistaken, the locking column.
It's a nut.
Yeah, the knurled collar that you turn around. So if
Yeah.
you replace the steering wheel with a non-standard steering wheel, you're not going to
On
have
the
the
shaft.
threads on the bottom of the steering wheel, right?
Correct.
So
Well,
it's
What are you saying, Bob?
I don't know if the steering wheel is a kind of a monolita, as a universal steering wheel will fit on a lot of different Healy hubs, I guess. I don't think they would make them all different. They would try to uniform them so they,
No. Motor used to make a hub specifically for adjustable steering Austin-Healey's. Now, it's a long time ago, but they did make one, and they had a nut. They had a nut, very good Blumel nut.
yeah.
It was actually a different manufacturer, but it did work on the same system.
Well, I may open up a bag of worms here, but when it comes, I'm gonna have to find out what's going on here. I think I'll just wait for the cold weather, so I won't have to drive it.
Send pictures.
Peter,
Yeah, hi, Nick.
this is Nick. Is this gentleman going to Summit with the steering wheel?
Yeah,
No, I'm not.
You're not, okay.
I was going.
Because I have a Moto Lita on a BJ8, and you had to buy an adapter. Now, this is 20-some years ago, but if you'd like, I could take a picture of it and send it to you.
well, look, Rick Neville's showing a picture right now.
We're doing
Okay.
show and tell tonight.
Yeah,
This
Nice.
is an adjustable steering wheel,
yes,
okay?
yep,
This is the adjustable steering boss.
yeah,
This has to fit in here. You need the threads down here for this to screw onto. And when you screw this in and out, that compresses these little springs to lock it together.
yes.
So you may have a steering wheel that doesn't have the threads and so you probably don't have this. This is what you ordered? This
Well,
thing?
Even if I had that, it wouldn't screw onto the hub that I have. So
That's what I'm saying. So
But I
that's why no matter what you do, you're gonna get that in and out movement because you don't have anything that's gonna grasp
right.
this.
So what I did, I ordered both of those,
Ordered both of what?
both pieces. The one you have in your left hand and the piece you have in your right hand.
You ordered the whole steering wheel.
Not the wheel, not the wheel itself.
Then what
But-
part here did you
Ordered a
order
new
from here?
hub.
No,
The ball?
just Rick, you're on the Motor Leaders, the wheel patch from the hub. Remember, it's got 8
It
screws around.
screws, it mounts to the boss.
After you take the 8 screws off and take the wheel off, that's what I'm ordering, that piece under that.
You should be right. You should be okay.
And did you order an adjustable wheel boss then? Because the boss you use for the motor leader has to be an adjustable wheel boss, correct?
He has to have an adjustable on there right now because it's moving back and forth. It has to have the adjustable
Correct.
column doesn't have a nut to hold the steering wheel on. It has
Okay,
a
right.
strap ring.
Right.
So it has to be an adjustable, and if he's getting one with a collar to it, it's gonna fit.
That tightening collar doesn't, I don't see any screws on the outside to tighten the tightening collar. I don't know where where the
Your
threads
DCLA
would be. I don't see where the threads would be unless they're on the inside
They
somewhere.
are.
Oh, they're on the inside?
Inside of the tightening collar.
It's actually a taper. It's actually a taper that goes up.
What Rick just showed you, Rich.
Yeah. Hey, Rick Neville, show me that again. Does that thing you're unscrewing right there, does it screw from the inside? The threads are inside?
Now this is the collar. Okay,
Yeah,
The
now,
nut.
now this part is the boss. And as Mike and Bob said, on a motor leader, you have a boss like this,
okay,
with a bunch of screws that the wheel screws into.
yeah.
You have a separate boss like this. And so when you get this, can you see the threads on the bottom of this thing?
Yes, I can. You know what? I may have those. I never pulled it out to look.
And then
So
this should fit over here. And that's what tightens up.
I may only need that part that you're screwing on.
The nut. That's
Yeah,
the
maybe
nut.
that's the only part I do need. But, we'll see when it comes.
Okay.
What am I gonna do? A lot of spare parts. Well,
Now, if
thank you.
anyone wants me to bring a 6-cylinder crankshaft in, I'm not going to do that.
No, we had signed up to go to this thing next weekend. And my wife was kind of upset with the COVID and everything. So we canceled out. And for two reasons. First reason, we go up about 5 times a summer up to Newport. So there's nothing new up there that we haven't seen. And secondly, she was worried about the COVID and being indoors because they're having you sign these papers, these, what do you call things?
They're called waivers, Rich. And you're absolutely right. That's all everyone who, and that's nothing new. We've always had waivers.
Yes. So we're not going.
Well, thirdly, you don't have a steering wheel.
Oh, wait, I do. It still steers.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And
Okay.
we heard from Nick. Nick's got a question as it relates to recommendations for the coolant ratio. Nick, that it assumes that you're buying full strength antifreeze and then mixing it with water.
Yeah, and I've just heard, I've heard different so-called experts say that, if you keep your car inside in the wintertime, you don't need to use 50/50. And if you go to like 25/75, then the car will cool better, and so on. And I'm just curious, you can read 5 articles and have 6 different opinions. So I was just curious what anybody thought.
I'm from Canada. We know all about antifreeze.
Austin has friends who are not vaccinated.
The thing about antifreeze is that it has a lower specific heat than water. Water has a really good specific heat. Amount of energy it will transfer. The more antifreeze you put into the water, the less heat it will transfer. So if you're in an area where you don't need antifreeze, just put in an inhibitor and pure water, and you'll get the best cooling.
No, he lives in the Glens Falls area of New York, Mike. So he needs antifreeze.
He needs antifreeze. Yeah. So, you use the least amount of antifreeze that you think you can get away with, and you'll get the best cooling.
Okay.
And what are people's opinion as it relates to the premix that you can buy just straight out of the bottle at premix? What's that, roughly 50/50?
Waste of money.
Excuse me, can I add something there?
Please.
In the manufacture of ready-to-use antifreeze, in other words, pre-mix, they use distilled water. And all radiator manufacturers will tell you in their instructions to use distilled water. So if you're using tap water, you're adding elements that are going to plug up eventually the passages in the radiator and that kind of thing. I didn't know that until about 2 years ago, and I've been using ready-to-mix antifreeze ever since, or ready-to-use antifreeze ever since, because it is made with distilled water, and you don't get the contaminants and the additives that you would that come out of your tap.
And
So there's 2 ways to think about it. What Michael said and the distilled water function.
Good point. Les, you had something to add?
I've had good luck with just buying distilled water in the supermarket, which is relatively cheap, and adding that to the antifreeze. And the other thing I would add is I've also had good luck with adding a bit of water wetter product to it. That's been very successful.
I've been doing the same thing with the race car because we're not allowed to run antifreeze anyway. So I just run the distilled water and water wetter once. It keeps it cool. So that's all that matters.
But Richard, what do you do in the winter? You're not running the car in the winter, I assume.
No, just drain it. What I do is I have a Model A too, and the way I do them is I drain them, and then I flush it with a little antifreeze for the winter, just to rub it in there. You let it get through all, run it a little bit, then drain it out, and that protects any water that's left in there from cracking. That's the dual use water.
You guys mentioned water wetter. I'm not familiar with that. What is, do you add that to the antifreeze water mix?
Yes.
What,
Yeah, it's supposed to reduce the temperature, and you can buy it online, or any auto parts place would have water wetter.
What it actually does is it changes the ionization of the water molecules to lower the temperature.
Yeah, I've used it successfully, Tom.
okay, I'll add that then.
I'd like to inject something here. I was at the Invasion this weekend, and there was a guy there. He was trying to push Evans coolant. It's a liquid. It's quite expensive. It costs you about $100 to do the conversion.
Wow.
But he claims that if you got up to, like, say 212 degrees, it will not boil. You will get no steam off it. There's no water in it. It's waterless. And he swore up and down. I got the brochure on it, and I was going to look up and see what else was to go with it. But
So it's called
it was
Evans.
very
you
convincing.
said?
Very convincing the way he was talking about it. It's called Evans.
Anyone have any experience with Evans?
I've heard numerous people who have used it unsuccessfully. I think it has a fairly low specific heat. So it's probably not as good as at transferring heat as water would be.
He claimed different when he.
I haven't heard anybody who's used it successfully.
That's why I say I got the brochure and the information on it, and I just before I bought any, I said I'm going to check on it and get.
I did a lot of research when I was transferring my V8 in, and first of all, what it does, in order to use Evans, you have to completely drain your cooling system of all water.
Yeah.
Even the smallest, slightest amount of water. And that means that you have to use a flush, either a flush that Evans sells, or I'm trying to remember whether you also can use alcohol, but at any rate, I think $100 is way low. I think if you convert to Evans, you're probably looking at a $300 bill. On top of that, if you somehow burst a radiator hose or have some other kind of problem that you need to top up, you can't mix regular antifreeze or regular water with this stuff. You can only fill it up with Evans coolant.
No, he claimed that you could add water to it. It just brings down the.
You go to the Evans.
Of it.
You go to the Evans website and see what they say, because I think this guy's full of baloney. I will tell you something else is what it does is it raises the boiling point of your engine. So if it would normally overheat at 230 or 240, or 212, depending on what radiator cap you have, it might not overheat until 240, 250, 260. However, that doesn't mean you're not damaging your engine. You're still exposing your engine to that higher temperature, and depending on where you're going to get oil breakdown, if you're running your oil at 250, 260, that's not going to be really good for your lubrication process. Frankly, I really went into a whole thought process, because I know Jay Leno uses it and he recommends it, and that's good enough for me, but I looked at it entirely myself. I wouldn't use it. I think I wouldn't say it's snake oil, because a lot of people have used it successfully, but I've heard bad things about it too, and I just don't think it's worth the money. That's my 2 cents.
And I heard they don't import it into Maine, Jim, either.
They do, but it comes in stainless steel gallon jugs is how it comes.
They sold me. I'll buy it.
Okay. Well, great. So Michael, you had a question regarding your overdrive. You want to share your question, please?
Yeah, when I got the car, the overdrive was working intermittently. I redid the dashboard and I replaced the overdrive switch, and it worked fine for a while. Last week, overdrive didn't engage at all. No change in revs, no nothing. This past weekend, the overdrive seems to be working, but the tachometer and the gas gauge go down to 0 at times and then come back to life. So I'm suspicious that I probably have a bad ground somewhere, but it seems to be affecting both the overdrive, the tachometer, and the gas gauge. And the only pattern that I'm seeing is that the tachometer and the gas gauge are going on and off at the same time randomly. So I'm looking for suggestions on how to trace it down.
Michael, what kind of big Healy do you have?
I'm sorry?
What kind of big Healy do you have?
It's a 66 BJ8.
Okay, you're BJ8, okay.
Sounds like a bad
are different on BJ8s.
bad fuse connection. Sounds
I'm
like
sorry?
a fuse connection. It's a fuse connection, my guess would be. The fuses go into little sockets, little holders, and they get corrosion between the end of the fuse and the socket. Just wiggle the fuse back and forward a few times, you'll probably find everything will go away.
Really?
Yeah.
So just
the fuse.
either the top fuse or the bottom fuse.
Oh, I can't remember. Depends which way they put the fuse box in.
Right, that's
Yeah.
true. Okay.
Probably just a
Okay.
fuse.
Okay, so that would be the first place to explore.
Easiest
Okay.
thing first, right?
I'm sorry?
You start with the easiest things first.
Yeah, I also noticed that I think to engage overdrive, I've got to be closer to 50 mile an hour than 40. And am I correct that there's a centrifugal switch on it too?
No, not on your car.
Not on mine.
Only
Okay.
BN1s. Only
Okay.
BN1.
I have a question. Unless
Good, Rich.
somebody else is in line. I don't know if anybody's in line.
Well,
For
go ahead,
question.
Rich. Does it relate to the overdrive that Rich was just discussing, that Michael was just discussing?
Yeah, that just happened to me the other day. I was going down to New London and I was running my overdrive and I turned it off and was driving. And then I went to turn the overdrive back on and never came back on again. So I checked and my electromagnet is good because I turn the key on and go to 3rd or 4th gear and move my shifter sideways and it clicks. So that tells me that my switch is good. It tells me that my electromagnet is good, but I don't know where to go from there. There's a little side box that you adjust, and I was supposed to do something. I don't know what, but I've moved it 3 or 4 positions, and I can't get that overdrive to go in. But how I do get it to go in is I take the center console off and the shaft that is the adjuster, the little adjuster box, is a shaft that goes through to the passenger side. And it's a little arm. And as I'm driving, I put it in 3rd gear as I'm driving and I flip down the overdrive, still doesn't go in. And I reach down and I push with my thumb on that little arm on the passenger side of the transmission or the overdrive. And it pops right in and goes into overdrive.
Okay, you're in tiger country. You're in tiger country. First thing, it's called a solenoid, not a magnet. It's a solenoid.
Yes,
okay?
yes, the solenoid.
That solenoid has 2 coils in it. It has what's called a pull coil and a hold coil. Now, the pull coil draws about 15 amps. It's a very heavy wire. And when you first switch the overdrive on, the power goes to the solenoid. The pull coil energizes. It pulls the plunger of the solenoid up, and that opens a pair of points in the top of the solenoid, which switches off the pull coil, and the hold coil, which only draws about 1.5 amps, stays powered, and that holds the solenoid up. Right. What happens with most people is they mess around with the adjustment on that solenoid. That's the little pinch bolt you're talking about on the other side.
Yes.
And by adjusting it incorrectly, they prevent the solenoid from moving, the solenoid armature from moving all the way to the top. When the solenoid armature can't move to the top, it can't open the points to turn off the pull coil. So 15 amps running through the pull coil for 10 minutes burns out the solenoid. Follow that?
A little.
I know, it's tiger country. So you probably solenoid.
Can't hear you.
Fortunately, solenoids are now about $60 instead of the $300 they were 20 years ago.
Yeah. So you think changing the solenoid would probably,
And adjusting it absolutely correctly.
okay.
But
So
if
I've got one coil working and the other coil is not.
Yeah, the hold coil's working, the pull coil's probably burned out.
Okay. All right.
Well, Rich, you got the transmission tunnel off. You've done the hard work on a BJ8.
It seems like I got it off more than I got it on these days.
Oh, there you go. And now your wife doesn't want to ride around in the car with the transmission laying out there, right?
Yeah. The other problem I have with the transmission is, now see, this is the first, like only the fourth time I've had this car out since I put it together. And the transmission, when I got the car, it was in the car already, although the car was completely apart. The engine and transmission were on a rolling frame. And so what I have now, I drive it, I start it up, put it in reverse, out of the garage, out to the street, first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fine. I get down to the end of the street, stop, go to put it into first again, won't go. Second, won't go. I have to go over into third and drop it down into third. So I guess what that does is line up the gears again, then put it in neutral, slip it back over, and it goes into first again and second. So I don't know.
Sounds like you get some transmission issues in addition to your overdrive issues.
Yes, I got some transmission issues.
Well,
And-
when it's nice and cold this winter, when you pull the transmission and have it rebuilt, that will be a good time to look at it.
Yeah, but how much does that cost?
It doesn't matter.
What does it cost to rebuild the transmission? Because I know you got plus the gears, labor plus.
No. Hang on, wait. First off, your gearbox is probably fine. Does it make noise in gears?
No.
No, it runs normally. No, what you're dealing with is either a clutch, which is not fully disengaging. So you've got a little bit of drive in the clutch and it's stopping you from getting into gear. When you go towards first gear, do you grinding noise?
When I what?
When you go towards first gear, do you get a grinding noise?
No.
Then
But the car is still. and I
Go
put it-
station, you're stationary, you push it into first, it just won't go in.
Oh,
Is that what you're
What-
saying?
when I first start the car, like I say,
No, the second trip, Rich.
Second trip. Okay, you've stopped at the light, okay? You got your clutch on the floor.
yes,
You go into first gear.
it won't
You
go.
get it won't go. Does it grind?
No, don't do
No
anything.
grind?
It's
What
like-
if you pump the clutch, Rich?
No. If it doesn't grind, then you have a selector issue. And the selector issue will require that the top comes off the gearbox to resolve the issue. But if it does grind, it's a clutch issue.
It does not grind.
So it's a selector issue.
It's a block in first and a block in second. It won't
It's a
go in-
selector issue, selectors.
So you can fix that from the top.
You can. I'm not going to, but you can.
Is that selector made of brass?
Yeah, the selector forks are made of brass, but it's most likely related to the little, what are called lockout balls, which are in the case of the gearbox. Unfortunately, you'd have to take the gearbox completely apart to resolve that issue.
Oh, but see,
Okay, it's getting a little complicated.
yeah, when I drained the oil 2 days ago, I thought replacing the oil might do something.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything. But what I did find in the old oil, it looked like it was, what do you call it? Like gold gold flakes in the paint.
Uh-oh.
Like it
It's not
looked,
a
it looked like
synchronizer problem.
like you
Go ahead, Bob.
know when you look at a paint job,
Rich, let Bob answer your question.
yeah.
The gold flakes are your synchronizers, brass, and they're just worn out.
Not in the
So why it's not
BJ8.
going-
The
Pardon me?
BJ8 has steel synchros.
Then it's also, something brass is wearing out. If that's where you're seeing gold flakes in there.
Well, that's what Michael is talking about. Michael was just saying the selectors, they're made of brass.
Yeah, but he's saying that it's the selector balls up in the transmission case at the end of the selector shafts that are causing your problem.
Yeah.
So
So it's going to come apart to do the balls, but it don't have to come apart to do the selectors.
well, they're
It does have to come apart to do the selectors because you can't get the selectors off the rods without taking the gearbox apart.
Okay. You can't just take the top cover off.
So Quantum Motors, Rich, is the kind of the preferred Healy transmission restore, and he's in Connecticut.
Quantum Mechanics.
I just called today and she's going to call me back to see if they have a rebuilt BJ8 transmission. And I'll probably have to return the one I have to them if they sell me a rebuilt one. So I'm looking into that right now.
Okay. Hey, Dave Brierly, I know you've got your bugeye right there. You've got some questions regarding that.
Yes.
So why don't we'll switch gears from big Heelys to the Sprites for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm in the process of refurbishing my 1960 Austin-Healey bugeye, and I just had it repainted about a month and a half ago now. And the body shop took apart all the wiring little furrows at the end of the wires, and I have since figured out how to reinstall those and run the wires through the ferrules and bend them back and so forth. In talking with a friend of mine in Minnesota and also the bugeye guy, I did run into problems with having ordered new taillights that the metal holder of the light and that the wires go into, and the old ferrules are a different diameter by a slight amount, so they didn't work. I had to go down to Bugeye and I got some different ferrules, the end pieces, and they fit nicely, but they're a slightly different shape. They have a little nipple at the end of it, but the wire still goes through. I did find that.
And Dave, are you soldering those?
I did not solder them. I did try that initially.
They have to be soldered.
I had to evacuate the car when Hurricane Henri was on its way, and so I ended up driving it without any lights, and I had a friend following me to provide brake lights. But
they should be soldered, Dave.
They should be soldered.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, whereabouts? You
run the wire through that connector that bugeye guy gave you. You solder it right there at the top, and then you put it on. I think Michael's going to show you right now. Or is he getting a drink?
Okay.
Oh, you get a drink. You get some wine instead. But yeah, you all those should be soldered, Dave.
Okay.
Now, hang on, just one sec. The ones that go into the rubber sleeves, okay, that's the ones that join two wires together. Those are called bullet connectors, and they are soldered or soldered, as it should be, onto the brass wire, onto the copper wire. They are soldered on, no wire sticking out the end. The wire, the brass goes into it, and it's filled with solder, and that's what connects those things to the wire. The type that go into the lights are.
Just lost you.
Yeah, Mike, you've frozen. Again, if you're not speaking, you wouldn't mind you put your phone on mute. We're getting some background noise.
you're gonna do your live lesson with your teacher.
Okay, we just muted
Okay.
him.
Well, I'll go back and revisit and do some soldering.
Sorry.
I also,
Sorry,
also found-
I got lost there. So hang on. So the type that go on the lights are different. They are a hollow type. You put the wire through and you fold the conductor,
yes,
the brass, and then it pushes into the holder in the light, the little circle in the lights. They're
Okay.
two distinct types.
uh-huh. That's what I have done ultimately with bending the wire back and then pressing it through the holder on the light socket.
That's correct.
And they seem to work fine.
They will. They're good. That's correct.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I just caution anybody that the dimensions were slightly different. Even the shape of the little metal connectors were different. And I actually had to run the wire through. I actually used the smallest electric drill I had, and I drilled it out a little bit, and then it slipped through fine and it was still nice and tight, and then bent the wires back. And that seemed to help. Other questions, I'm going to be replacing the gas tank filler gasket that's just underneath the gas cap, and mine is so old that it's really hard, and I wonder how you can pry that one off or remove it prior to putting a new one on.
So when they painted the car, they left that on?
Yes. Which probably shouldn't have.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a rubber gasket that
is
fits
rubber.
on both sides of the shroud, and then you put your gas tank up through it.
No, hang on. Talking about different things. I think he's talking about the cap to the neck.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
there's a rubber gasket that fits in the body panel
on the shroud,
and
sorry,
to
my
hold
apologies,
the pipe in place.
Well, you're going to have to take the gas tank out first of all, in order to pull the whole tube out. And then once you pull the tank, the later cars had a removable
two-piece,
but the bugeyes were one piece.
Yep.
So you drop the tank.
Yeah.
And then you just squeeze that gasket inwards toward each other. And, it'll come right out, and then replace it with the new one. Now, hopefully, what I probably, you want to be real careful about how they masked that gasket when they painted around it.
Yeah.
That you want to make sure that you don't have any paint coming from the body that's kind of on top of the old gasket.
Yes.
You might want to use real carefully a razor blade around there so that you break that, because you don't want to take the gasket out and have it take half of your new paint with it.
Good point.
So what you might be able, I think you're gonna have to be real careful if you use a razor blade around there though.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, because one slip and you're gonna, put a 3-inch long scrape in there. But that's how you do it. I mean, it's easy. It comes out very easily once you get the gas tank out.
Okay. Well, that'd be a good winter project, I think.
And then what you do is you put the new rubber gasket in, and then you feed the tube from the gas tank back up through to the back of the car.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you may need you to put some silicone on there, or maybe need 2 people to give you a hand with that. It is a tight fit, Dave.
Okay. Well, that's good advice from all of you. So
But yeah, you definitely need to remove. Now, your gas tank, do you have, is there a cock in there so you can drain the gas from it?
I'd have to look.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's the original tank, so I've had the car since the late 70s.
Okay.
I'll check that, see if there is. Another question I had with it's a 1960, but I have a 1958 9-stud windshield on it, and I've read that the pillars on either side of the windshield should be painted the color of the car, and I'm tempted to do that. That right now they're black from a previous owner, and I like the appearance of the 9-stud one, and I do have the convertible top for that particular one too. So I'm wondering if any of you have one of the bugeyes that's, you know, in the early 5,000 that would say confirm that the color of the pillar should be the color of the car.
Well, if you want to give me a
58,
couple,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if you want to give me a couple of seconds, I have the concourse guidelines for the sprites on my computer, and I'll look it up.
Oh,
I think
okay.
they're-
Have you driven the car recently in the rain with the 9-stud windscreen?
I have not
One
had
at
a trouble
least.
with that because I got, when I had it in both Minnesota and California, of course, didn't have to worry about it in California, but I put a thin piece of weather stripping across the full width of the windshield above the studs, and that worked. So
Okay, good. That's the reason they went to the 2-stud systems, because they leaked.
yeah, I have heard that, and I guess I was fortunate to just use the foam tape, and that cured the problem.
So does the foam tape sit on the windscreen frame, or does it sit on the top?
It goes right on the frame, right?
Okay.
And I put it right above the 9 studs.
Got it. Okay.
So
I was gonna say before, I believe the stanchion should be silver.
What's that?
I think the stanchion should be silver, not
Silver?
body color.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
I'm not sure that's the case for the 58s.
I don't
It
know, I
is-
have a 58. So.
It's the 59s that operate silver, but not for the 58s, I don't think.
Yeah, this was a 58 windshield.
Yeah,
And
I think they should be painted.
Yeah. And then I did have the glass replaced with a new whole new glass windshield, and that made a huge difference. It's just no pits, no clouding. Agawam did that for me, and
Yep.
was
Up in
pleased with
Attleboro,
it,
right?
based on one of you guys' recommendations.
Yep.
So that's a big step. Another thing, well,
So Rick, I'm gonna need to run, so I'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you, guys. Have a good night. We'll talk to you next month.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
So
Thank
we'll,
you.
We'll keep the call going, but I'm just gonna be off.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Rick. Yeah. Another question I'm wondering about. I replaced all the brake lines on the bugeye back in the late 70s, and I've noticed a little evidence of cracking in the flexible hoses on the front brakes, and I'm wondering, not knowing what the construction is of those brake lines, if the cracking of the rubber means that they're on their way out, or whether there's an inner tubing in those flexible hoses.
If they haven't replaced them since the 70s, just replace them. They're cheap.
Yeah.
Because what happens is they fail internally before they fail externally.
Okay.
And a lot of times what will happen is you'll push down on the pedal, but then you won't get the pedal to return because the internal diameter of the hoses has gotten smaller. They're cheap, just replace them.
Okay.
And I'd make sure that your solid pipes are not rusted as well. I mean, if the car's, is there any rust in the car or?
No, it's it's pretty clean.
Okay, well, but just do a double check of all your lines and make sure they're not rusted, because they can either fail through rust or they can fail through fatigue, over a period of time. And if you do replace them, I'd use the copper nickel pipes are easy to replace. Cunifer, they call it in some countries, but you can bend them yourself, and they're not contour correct, but they last forever and they're easy to replace.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it worth using stainless, the braided stainless?
Yeah, I mean,
for the flexible, is that safer?
The stainless are fine. They generally have Teflon inside. They're Teflon hoses with a stainless braided covering. They are alleged to give you a slightly harder brake pedal. They look pretty. Looks like you're really a full competition guy. I use them on my cars. I'm happy with them.
Okay.
I've got them on mine too.
Yeah.
And,
Good to know.
I would
Okay.
recommend them because you get a better pedal too,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
because they don't expand. Yeah.
Okay.
Are they
Yeah.
generally safer too?
Pardon me?
Yeah,
Are they generally safer?
Define
Yeah.
safe and define safe and Austin-Healey Sprite.
Yeah.
They're race
You know,
cars, so nothing
blowing,
safe.
nothing like blowing a line to get your attention. You know, so, you know, do they handle, I guess the notion of that you get better braking is that stainless steel isn't going to flex like,
Yeah.
like rubber's going to, right?
Right.
That's the reason why you're getting that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not, the internals aren't flexing out the way they would on a rubber hose. And
Yeah.
so you've got, and it also starts, you've got Teflon inside rather than rubber.
Uh-huh.
So Teflon is more resistant to expansion.
Okay.
You'll notice a difference. I mean, you'll get a noticeable difference.
Yeah, I became a convert long ago to using silicone brake fluid. And I've been pleased with that.
You might find, depending on sometimes with silicone, you'll get a slightly softer pedal.
Yeah.
It can be harder to bleed. On the other hand, it doesn't tear your paint off. You don't have to replace it every year or two. I'm going to tell you a terrible secret, but I rebuilt my bugeye in somewhere between 86, I think it was finished. And at that time I put silicone brake fluid, copper wire, copper tubing, not copper tubing, but copper nickel brake lines, and the stainless steel hoses. And I haven't changed any of them in some 30 years. And they're still, the brakes are fine. There's no leakage anywhere. And I would, if you're going for the best pedal, I'd go with the regular fluid. If you're going for length and not having to change it every couple of years, I'd go silicone.
Uh-huh. Well, that sounds like you've had good success, and I have so far too. So I think I'll stick with it. So, okay.
Another thing you can't, as you well know, you can't mix silicone fluid and regular fluid. And the other thing that you have to be careful of now is that when you go to the auto parts store, every brake fluid now says synthetic. And you got to, just because it's synthetic doesn't mean it's silicone. It's two different things. Okay. And so, your regular fluid is now called synthetic fluid, but it's not silicone fluid.
Okay. Good to know.
Is there
I took my master cylinder apart once upon a time when I was, and I found pitting in the bottom of the cylinders, and that convinced me to change the master cylinder as well as use the silicone, so I didn't get the moisture in the inside the master cylinder, and that seems to have helped too. I have a new master cylinder and some of the brake lines on hand for overhauling, but I'll pay attention to what you guys have mentioned for the materials.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Ken Gibson here.
Hey, Ken.
Dot 3 is just regular brake fluid. Dot 4 is regular brake fluid, but with a higher boiling point. And synthetic, so is your
Dot 5.
Yeah, dot 5.
I've been using in the nasty boy, I use dot 4.
Yep.
That
has a higher boiling point.
Yeah, and I think, there used to be a whole thing, and Mike and Bob can probably talk to this better than I can, but it used to be you could only use, Castrol LMA on British braking systems, and now I don't even think with the seals they're using now, I think dot 4 is fine.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, is that dot four silicone?
No, that's .5 is silicone. .4 is it will be called synthetic, and it's got a higher boiling point than .3, which may also be called synthetic. I don't know that they ever just sell you plain old brake fluid without calling it synthetic anymore. I haven't seen it.
Is there a brand of synthetic that you guys use? Sorry, is there a brand of silicone that fluid that you use?
I don't think it makes any difference because I think it's all the same stuff from what I've heard. You go on probably any of the places and you can get silicone fluid. It's expensive, and you got to make sure that if you don't have silicone in your car already, the whole thing has to be either flushed or changed. Everything, including the cylinders, the seals, your rear cylinder, your brake. It really is only cost effective if you're completely replacing your brake system. I mean, top to bottom. I've heard people that will run denatured alcohol through the system and flush it that way. Some say it works, some say it doesn't. So,
I converted to the silicone after I replaced all the pipes and the flexible hoses and the master cylinder back in the late 70s. So it's been a long time.
Yeah, and that's another thing you can't mix. You can't mix silicone fluid and non-silicone fluid.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Your braking system won't work.
Yep. Okay.
So
Well, I guess
the
that
bottom-
wraps up the questions I had.
So the bottom line, as far as silicone versus non-silicone, is that if you're going to change everything, the current rebuilt, for instance, a rebuilt master cylinder, you can use the silicone. There's no benefit to using .4.
Not really. The only difference would be you might find you get a softer brake pedal with the silicone than you would with the .4.
Yeah, I have the silicone in the Corvair that I have, and it's been running fine. But and then the Healey project, part of probably the brake cylinders have a little bit of the typical .4, .3 in it, but everything else is being replaced. And when I rebuilt a car, for God's sakes, I don't want the brake fluid going everywhere and ruining all the paint. So the silicone has been great for the Corvair because I'm always getting leaks here and there. But that .3 or 4, my God, it just eats away your paint.
Yeah.
So
I wish I'd had silicone in my Corvair Corsa back in the 70s. I drove from Mystic up to Boston, right through the combat zone and everything, pulled up next to a parking place on Commonwealth Avenue, put my foot on the brake to stop and went right to the floor. And it was
rusted out.
And I had to drive 10 blocks using the emergency brake to get it fixed. The line had rotted behind the fuel tank. And so other than that,
Richard, you're not using on the race car. You're not using synthetic on the race car, are you?
No, using .4.
Yeah. I don't know any races that use synthetic. Do you?
No. I was very wild.
Or OEM manufacturers for that matter.
True.
The other advantage to silicone is that it actually resists moisture.
Yeah.
But it absorbs air, which is why you have a softer pedal. You keep getting some bubbles in it all the time.
So you're not a silicone fan?
I am not.
That's not a double entendre, Bob.
Is the difference in the softness of the pedal of silicone versus the, let's say, .4? Is it the viscosity, or what would give it that extra sponginess, would you say?
It's
Bob said air in the system.
No, it's compressibility. The silicon actually has a certain degree of compressibility.
Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
But, and the other thing is you have to remember, most people don't do this. You really should in a Healy, especially if you got a single braking system.
Yeah.
You want to change your brake fluid if you're using regular fluid pretty often, because you're relying on that to a greater degree.
Yeah.
I usually try to flush mine out every 2 or 3 years, and some people do it every year or two.
Yeah. Has anybody ever fitted a dual master cylinder to a Healy of any type?
To all of them at some point or other. Sometimes people use a Fiat 124 cylinder for the big Healys. Then you can get all kinds of aftermarket dual cylinders. Some people use the later, for bugeye, they use the dual cylinders from the later Sprites, Spridgets. There's a lot of ways to do it, but a lot of it's not necessarily an easy task, but it's doable. I mean, again, Richard, what do you use in the race car?
Well, this race car is done, it's more of a show car. It's done to the 63 standard. So I don't use I use a single brake system, but most of the guys who race them hard use the dual.
Yeah, a lot of them are using a Tilton system, and they'll do a whole pedal system, and depending on how, like I said, you can make it work. You can make there are ways to make your standard Healy work with a dual system. Like I said, with a Fiat 124 Spider,
right,
master brake cylinder, you can do it. Is pretty much looks like the same Girling system.
I'll tell you, mine has drum brakes.
Yeah.
And all the way around, and I'll tell you, no matter what you do, the brakes are kind of terrible. They fade real fast.
Yeah. That's why the factory put discs on them.
Yeah.
All right, any more questions, folks?
I have a question on tire pressures.
Oh, good. Yeah.
100 Austin-Healey 100 standard car. I've just changed to some Michelin 16515s, and previously I'd been running about 32 psi, and I find them really harsh. And I'm wondering if people are running them a lot softer, like 24, 23.
Which pattern are you using with the Michelins?
XAS.
I've got 180 60 HR 15s on my BJ7 XAS, and I know obviously there's different weights of the cars. I know that Alan Hendricks is recommending 32 on the big Healys. I suppose you could try lower. I mean, I think it's a matter of trial and error. What do they? Do you know what the 100 on bias ply? What the recommendations were?
20 and 23.
And didn't they just at the time the radials came out recommend like a couple of pounds higher, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, that's right. But the guy that sold me the tires said run them at 30 and 34, and the car hops around all over the place.
I think that's too high.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, I just wanted your thoughts.
Does it have to do with the weight of the car?
You wouldn't run 30 and 34 you wouldn't run 34 on a BJ8.
I know. That's what I thought too. I think he's wrong.
Well, for what it's worth, I had a BMW 2002 with XASs, and I ran 32.
Do you?
But it's a different car.
What does it weigh?
Probably 3,000, maybe 3,200. I don't know.
Oh, it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's a heavier car.
Yeah, sure.
But it's designed for radials too, which is, obviously hundreds are not designed for
I think
radials.
the XAS was a standard tire in the 2002.
Yeah, I think it was an option, but it was basically a standard tire. Yeah.
I love those tires. They're great tires.
Yeah, they are.
Try them a little softer. If I'm not here next month, you'll know that it didn't work.
Well, now, and you can also, play with the front to rear tire pressures and tell us which side of the road you went off first, frontward or backward.
Yeah. Thank you.
Michael, I got some RS4s I'll be glad to sell.
No, been there, done that.
Those must be like bricks.
Yeah, they're pretty well weathered.
Now, with talking about tire pressure, it makes me think about the tires on my bugeye. I have radials, and they're ones that I bought in probably 1995, and I've heard that, and I've only put about 3,000 miles on them since then, and it's a question of whether to replace them for a little softer ride or more reliability, or they look brand new, but I know they're not, and have read recommendations that you shouldn't keep old tires on your car too long. So any opinions on how long with a low mileage car you're talking about?
I think they recommend 6 or 7 years now. That's a tire manufacturer who wants to sell tires, but I'd say 1995, you're due for a change.
Yeah.
When I was a young kid, they used to have it's called Fisk tire. And they used to have this little boy that was ready to go to sleep, and the ad was time to retire. And I think you've probably hit that time. It's time to retire.
Okay, I'll do that. I won't go to work tomorrow.
No, it's good. You'll find a difficult time, however, finding a good 13-inch tire these days for the bugeye. I will tell you that they do make, and they're expensive, but they do make a Michelin XIS in that size. And I've had really good luck with Longstone Tire. They're in the UK.
Okay.
And they ship to the US for free, and it's very quick shipping, and their prices are pretty decent. The XIS is not a cheap tire. And you can still go to, I think Walmart might make a 15-inch tire, it's something made in China or, someplace else, but I wouldn't autocross it, but if you're not driving fast or anything like that, maybe it's okay for you.
Yeah. Okay. And what was the name of the company again in England?
Longstone, Longstone tire, just like it's spelled, TYRE.
The real way.
The real way.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I have a question before you ring off.
Sure.
If everybody's done. So the little Sprite that I have in the background there, when you look at it from behind, it looks like it's leaning a little to the left. Like
bachelor's lean. That's called in England a bachelor's lean, or not England because it'd be the other side. It's the side the driver is on.
Yeah.
Because it was always the bachelor that rode on that
So I assume you're not telling me I'm too fat, but
You didn't say that.
Yeah, it might have been implied. But is there a solution to the bachelor's lean, or just have to let the wife start driving more? Or
get a heavy wife and put her in the passenger seat.
I'm definitely not going there. Now you're just going to kill me.
Swap the springs side to side. You'll be amazed how successful it is.
Maybe. Is that it? It's just that the spring is a little more worn?
Yeah, generally you can try to swap it. Sometimes that works. Sometimes what people will do is shim one side over another and put some either lowering wedges in there. There are different things to try. Most of them don't seem to work very well. At the end of the day, they seem to still lean that side, but yeah. But you know what? Look up bachelor's lean and Spridget, and you'll find all kinds of solutions on it. Google that.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question?
Just one, Rick. I picked up a nice AM BJ8 radio at Lime Rock when I was down there.
Yeah, throw it away.
Well, no, I'm gonna get it rebuilt. I want to get it rebuilt with the Bluetooth. Who does that?
Bob Abbott knows somebody, I think. Bob, you still with us?
He does. But I've got to look him up.
Okay. And then the other thing is that it has the original knobs on it. They have some gouges in them. I know that this is like the you can't get these things anymore. Does anyone know? They're kind of a soft, rubbery kind of material. Does anyone know how to restore those? I mean, I know we're talking like little small details here, but I'm curious if anyone knows about that.
Probably black silicon.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, it's a little harder, obviously, than silicone, but yeah, I can work it out. I could probably do something for them, but
I wonder if there's, if you go on eBay or something, look for radio knobs. I wonder if there's any more modern thing that looks the same, or I don't know.
oh, I mean, I could certainly get it. I could replace it with something, yes, but I mean, this is, I'd like it kind of looking like it did in '67, but
You sound as sick as me.
of course, I'm putting the air conditioner in the car, and it has a hard top, but I just, this detail is like something I like. Yeah.
Tom, this is why you have a 20-year project, because you're looking for radio knobs.
I know.
Tom, do you have a pen ready?
I do.
Man's name is Mike Hagan, Hagan. He's in Pennsylvania. His phone number is 215-547-7145.
Okay, great.
He'll make it an AM, FM stereo. He'll put a Bluetooth in it. He'll make it positive or negative polarity for Earth. He'll put an MP3 jack to it. He'll put a cigarette lighter in it. He'll do anything.
Yeah, I don't. Just something to put my.
It'll all fit in the same case, in the same metal box.
Yeah, right. With the, this has a very nice, glass. The
correct.
Yeah, everything looks good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have one more question, Rick.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry. So this car, when I got it, it had this funky system for the top. You know how it's a convertible top. It comes over and it's supposed to clip onto the windshield frame with these two big clips.
Yeah.
And at the time when I got the car originally, they put on a new top on it, and they used snaps, like snap screws, and that, so now I had snap screws against the aluminum frame. I've since then upgraded the top to this cream top, and I got out of the UK. The installer put it on, and I bought from Moss what's I think is correct, this aluminum piece that goes to the top, and then a rubber gasket goes in, right? So now it seals from between the top and the frame.
Okay.
But I can't get the rubber gasket literally is about a 1/2 inch thick, but I can't get those clips to clip on. I'm like, I feel like I'm going to break the glass if I, try to push them too hard. You know what I mean?
So the clips come over the top and push up towards the top?
Yeah. And it's just like, it's so hard. I mean, I don't know
first of all, you got a brand new top on there?
Brand new.
So it's really possible. Try this first. Just try leaving the car out in the sun. And because maybe your top is too tight. It needs to stretch out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't.
That's not working.
It's loose. It's loose. Even, they tell you that too. Like leaving the sun, I don't think in this particular case, these guys. This is Prestige. These guys who make these tops, it fit perfectly. I had an installer put it on. He no problem. But
so it's a rubber gasket that's keeping it apart.
I don't know. It's what Moss sold me, but it's huge. It's like it's But what's bizarre is that you have. It compresses much more on the sides than it does in the middle, right? So I don't know if the frame is like a little bit bowed or something, but either way, there's adjustments on that. They're like these little Allen wrench screws that's what they have to try to adjust them. They go up and down those clips, but like I said, it's so hard. And if you get it to lock, it's almost virtually impossible to pull them off. You need like a hammer to pry them off, and that scares me because you're dealing with glass, man. You can't be flexing the thing like a you know, like a piece of metal, you know, you're gonna break the glass if it's too, you know, I just didn't think that's by design. Were they always that hard? Is that a
Well,
common thing?
I'll confess, I don't know a lot about the latest sprites because I really just know bugeyes and never use the top on the damn thing anyway. Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I can even think about is how much does the seal cost from Moss?
That was like $40.
It's the same issue on a BJA top. I gave up keeping the seal there because if, as you say, the thickness of that seal just prevents those clips from latching on and then being pulled up. The only thing I was going to do is I was just going to cut the seal short so it's only in the center and stops a half inch or an inch before that clip on both sides. So far, I haven't done anything with it. I've just got it sitting there, and I keep pondering what am I going to do, because I'm afraid I've got the same concern as you. You just have to pull it so tight that it's impossible to not be distorting the windshield.
Yeah, I got my hand on top of the windshield. I mean, on top of the roof, pulling it in.
Yeah.
Try to get this clip to, and the installer got it in, and then when I took it out, it's like I just don't want to break the.
Yeah,
I'll be back to Agawam if I break it again, but I don't want.
Right, and if you do force it in, it crushes the seal anyway.
Yeah.
Because that little adjusting part is pressing right up against the seal.
Yeah.
Question is, does it fit if you took the seal off, would it fit all right?
I had the seal off, yes.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah,
I mean,
which is nice. If you go fast, you hear a whistle.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping not to drive it in the rain, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I have no intentions of being in the rain either.
But the thing about it is, so I spent a lot of money on the top, and I got the cover, the cover that goes when it goes down.
The boot cover.
Yeah, the boot covers. But you're not supposed to leave it like that. And now, I mean, the other reason why I did it is because it's got to zip out. The back window will zip, so it flops in, so you can use it as like a tonneau cover. I mean, as a canopy with the windows open.
Right.
So it's got a. I mean, it's a nice setup. It's a nice feature. Especially, my wife doesn't like driving around when it's too sunny for too long. This is better. But yeah, I guess maybe.
Well, one of the problems is almost all the rubber seals that are remanufactured, none of them really fit very well. They don't fit as well as the originals. So as soon as you start replacing an original one, a lot of times you have problems with it.
Especially the end caps on the seals.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, this car didn't even. I mean, this was a redone car, or somebody did it. It didn't even have the seal at all. It didn't even have the channel, because that seal fits in a channel.
Right.
And that's why taking it out, I'm kind of like, oh God, if I take it out, it's going to take me 3 hours.
So what would happen if you took it out of the channel and trimmed a small amount off the bottom of that seal? I assume it's fairly thick seals, like a square seal at the bottom.
Yeah. It's
so what if you cut it down a little bit, and see if, I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to lose $45 and have to buy a new seal.
Oh, you're killing me. Okay. No,
well, you're an Austin-Healey driver now. You just got to be prepared to burn money left and right.
Oh, I have been. Amen. Oh yeah. In fact, I had to ask you this, Rick. Were you part of that bring a trailer sale that went on this last week?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like you. And I had my hopes that car wouldn't cost me more than my house, and it came pretty close. They did pretty well for themselves. I hope that
it went quite well. We got a good amount of money for that car, and it's a nice car. It's a good solid car. It's a good driver level Healey. And it runs good. I mean, it works great, and the tranny works great, and the overdrive, and it's a nice car. Yeah, it's
that was the white and red one, right?
No, this is the all Colorado red one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The black top, and this is the one.
Right. Yeah, that was the all red. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like mine. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the advice.
Anytime. Like I said, if all else fails, spend money on it.
Yeah. Sounds like my golf game. All right. Sounds good.
That's what they always tell you, isn't it?
Yeah. Throw money at it.
I worked with a lot of guys that said once they retired, they wanted to become golf pros because they thought if they could only just play more, they would. The only thing holding them back was not playing more. And after about 6 months of being out playing every day, they finally realized they just weren't that good,
Yeah.
They could practice all they wanted. They weren't going to get any better.
Yeah. I think a better plan is just to buy an Austin-Healey 3000 and ride around the country. So.
Well, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
It's a good plan.
All right.
Do we have any other questions? No more questions?
No.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say hello. I joined a little bit late. John Wood had actually kind of introduced me to the group. I actually joined about 6 weeks ago. So my name is John Ryle. I live in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And it'll probably be a couple of years before I speak up again because I'm totally a novice, but I enjoyed listening to the conversation this evening. But
well, welcome, John.
yeah,
I like your Pittsfield accent.
Absolutely.
You're obviously a native guy from the Berkshires. I can tell immediately.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't.
What kind of car do you have, John?
I got a Healey Mark II BT7.
Very nice.
I bought it from Larry Bellucci out in Chatham, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I don't know if Larry was part of this group ever.
I don't think so. I didn't know him, but I don't know everybody. Well, I would tell you, John, you're more than welcome to join us every month, and we enjoy having people with new questions, and we also enjoy having new members to the group. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. John Wood is here in Pittsfield. Great gentleman. Actually, I think he actually just crosses the line over into Dalton, Massachusetts. But great guy. He has a couple of Healeys. He introduced me to the link, and has been guiding me so far. But John's been great. But I also look to engage in with everybody else. But thank you.
We've had a couple of members from Dalton. Unfortunately, they all moved away. Bob Bender was from Dalton.
Oh, yeah.
So we've had some Dalton folks. Actually, that area was at the beginning of this club 40 years ago was a real hotbed of activity. So it's been quieter now. So welcome back. You can reinvigorate the Dalton Pittsfield area.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
Do we have any other questions, comments? Well, I hope to see all of you that are coming to Summit. I'll be only there for a couple of days doing the croquet game at the car show and also the fun corner, and I'll be driving in the gymkhana, and hope to see you all there. And if not, we'll see you next month back here. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys next month.
Yep. Take care.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.